Have you ever felt your heart race watching an animal fight desperately for its life? Imagine this scene: Shny, a powerful and majestic lioness, trapped in the deadly grip of a giant python, her breath slowly slipping away beneath the scorching African savanna sun. The sound of twigs snapping under the guard's boots echoes like war drums. Could you believe that amidst this chaos, a lion named Mosi, with eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets, could change everything with a single action? This isn't merely a story of survival, it's a powerful journey about trust, courage, and a profound bond between humans and nature that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Years earlier, Commander Hayes, a 60-year-old veteran whose wrinkles told stories of countless rescues, had saved Mosi's father from a poacher's trap. Who could have imagined that moment would echo so strongly into the future? Today, in that golden savanna filled with the dry scent of hot dust, Hayes and his team faced the impossible, saving Shny before it was too late. But what Mosi did next, well, no one could have anticipated. Pause for a second and picture this: a lion, a man, and a desperate battle against time. Have you ever looked into an animal's eyes and felt it clearly saying, "Trust me"? This story will take you right to the heart of the savanna, where the strength found in compassion shines brighter than the midday sun. And there's more: every moment offers invaluable lessons for your own life. If you love stories filled with adrenaline, deep emotion, and a touch of spirituality, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of them. But what exactly did Mosi do to alter Shny's fate? And how did the experienced Commander Hayes find himself utterly speechless? Let's find out together. The African savanna stretched out like a golden carpet under the midday sun, the heat shimmering on the horizon like a mirage. The air carried the dry scent of scorched grass, mixed with the faint hum of insects that seemed to whisper nature's secrets. Leading the charge was Commander Hayes, a 60-year-old veteran whose worn boots knew every inch of that terrain. He adjusted his hat, eyes squinting against the glare, as he guided his patrol team. Have you ever met someone whose gaze seems to carry the weight of 1,000 stories? That was Hayes, a man of few words, but when he spoke, everyone listened. The team was on high alert. The radio crackled with an urgent call: a lioness, Shny, had been spotted motionless, with dangerous movement around her. Hayes furrowed his brow. Dangerous movement could only mean one thing: big trouble. He gathered the rangers, each clutching long sticks and ropes, their hearts pounding. You know that moment when your stomach tightens before a big decision? That's exactly what hung in the air as they moved forward, the sound of their steps muffled by the hot earth. Hayes knew every second mattered in protecting wildlife, but one wrong move could cost them dearly. Did you know that lions, despite being apex predators, avoid direct confrontations with large pythons? These snakes can fast for up to 6 months after a big meal, using their brute strength to immobilize prey much larger than themselves. Shny was in deep trouble, and the team needed to act with precision. Hayes laid out the plan: locate Shny, assess the threat, and set up a perimeter. He glanced at the horizon, where the tall grass swayed like waves, and thought of Mosi's father, the lion he'd saved from a trap years ago. Was this a sign from the universe? He shook his head, focusing on the present. "No mistakes, folks," he said, his voice steady as a rock. The team advanced, sweat dripping down their necks, as a distant lion's roar, "Could it be Mosi?" echoed like a warning. Stop and feel the weight of it: a group of humans, armed only with courage and sticks, ready to face raw nature. In high-pressure situations, like Hayes, take a deep breath and break the problem into small steps. List what needs to be done and tackle one thing at a time. It works in the savanna or in your everyday life. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stay calm under pressure? How would Hayes handle what was coming? Because, trust me, what he saw up close changed everything. The tall grass parted like curtains, revealing a scene that made Hayes' heart race. There was Shny, the lioness, her golden fur streaked with dust, struggling against the coils of a giant python nearly 5 meters long. The sound of her body dragging against the dry ground was like a deadly whisper, while the metallic smell of tension hung in the air. Shny barely moved, her eyes half closed, each breath a struggle. Nearby, Mosi, the male lion, paced back and forth, muscles taut under his gleaming fur. Have you ever seen an animal so majestic look so helpless? Mosi let out low growls, as if he knew a wrong move could cost Shny her life. Hayes watched, sweat beading on his forehead. He knew pythons. Killed by constriction, squeezing until the prey's heart stops. Shny was running out of time. Mosi seemed to sense it too, but his agitation showed something more: trust in the human team. Seriously, can you believe it? A wild lion, king of the savanna, looking at Hayes as if saying, "Do something." The commander raised his hand, signaling the team to keep their distance. He needed to read the situation, every second pulsing like a drum in his chest. African pythons can exert up to 6 kilograms of pressure per square centimeter when constricting, enough to crush small bones. Shny, despite being a powerful predator, stood no chance alone against that deadly grip. The team formed a semicircle, sticks in hand, as Hayes studied the python's pattern. Its muscular coils moved in waves, squeezing Shny with cruel precision. 2 minutes, tops, Hayes muttered, his voice hoarse. He looked at Mosi, who stopped pacing and locked his golden eyes on him. It was like time froze, a man-nature connection that seemed to shout, "We both want the same thing." Hayes felt a chill, not of fear, but of responsibility. Stop and feel it, a man and a lion, side by side, against a monster of nature. When facing a problem that seems impossible, observe before acting. Like Hayes, analyze what's in front of you and trust your instincts for the next step. It works in the savanna or in life. Have you ever felt that moment when time seems to stop before a big decision? But what would Mosi do when the team sprang into action? Because, trust me, he didn't just stand there. The sun scorched the savanna, and the air seemed to hum with heat, carrying the faint scent of hot earth that clung to the skin. The sound of the python's coils sliding against each other echoed like a warning, as Hayes crouched, eyes fixed on the snake gripping Shny. Mosi, the lion, stood a few meters away, his tail lashing the ground like an anxious metronome. Hayes knew any mistake now would be fatal. Have you ever felt the weight of needing to act fast, but with utmost care? That's exactly where he was, his heart pounding, but his mind sharp as a blade. "Perimeter, now!" Hayes ordered, his voice firm, slicing through the silence. The rangers moved, forming a wide circle around the python, sticks ready, steps light to avoid provoking the snake. Hayes studied the constriction pattern. The python squeezed Shny in rhythmic waves, tighter each time. 3 minutes, he said, a mental clock ticking in his head. He glanced at Mosi and recalled the lion's father, caught in a trap years ago. That day, Hayes cut the ropes with his own hands. Today, he needed something bigger. Was this a cycle, as if nature were testing his courage? Male lions like Mosi rarely intervene in python encounters, but when they do, it's due to strong bonds with the female or pride. Mosi wasn't just protecting Shny, he was defending family. Hayes approached Mosi slowly, eyes locked with the lion's. "You know me, friend," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. To everyone's shock, Mosi stepped back 2 paces, as if saying, "Go ahead." Can you believe it? A wild lion giving humans space. It was trust between species shining through, raw and powerful. Hayes signaled the team, hit the extremities, carefully. He knew the python wouldn't let go easily, but that moment with Mosi gave him a spark of hope. Stop and picture it, a man, a lion, and a risky plan against time. When facing something scary, trust those by your side, like Mosi did with Hayes. At work or in life, knowing you're not alone can turn fear into strength. Would you have the courage to trust like that, with everything on the line? But what would happen when the team finally struck? Because, let me tell you, things got intense. The air in the savanna felt heavy, thick with the sharp smell of dust kicked up by the rangers' feet. The dry thud of sticks hitting the ground echoed like a war drum as Hayes' team advanced on the giant python. Shny, the lioness, was nearly still, her chest rising in shallow breaths, her eyes dull. Mosi, the lion, stood firm a few meters away, muscles taut, his low growl rumbling like distant thunder. Have you ever felt time slow down when everything's at stake? That's how it was, each move by the team seeming choreographed, yet danger loomed like a shadow. Hayes shouted, "Now!" at the ends. The Rangers struck, hitting the python's tail and head with sticks, trying to force it to loosen its grip. The snake hissed, a sharp sound cutting through the air, its body writhing with brute strength. A young, fearless ranger slipped on loose dirt and fell, his arm brushing the snake's scales. Hayes yanked him back, heart in his throat. "Focus," he ordered, but then, the unexpected happened. Mosi lunged forward, letting out a protective roar that shook the savanna. Can you believe it? A lion shielding humans. Lions use roars not just to mark territory but to coordinate group actions. Mosi's roar, up to 114 decibels, wasn't just intimidation, it was cover for the team, distracting the python at the right moment. Mosi stood between the snake and the Rangers, his golden eyes fixed on the python, giving the team the space they needed. The stick strikes continued, precise, as Hayes shouted instructions. The python began to yield, its coils loosening bit by bit, like ropes unwinding. Shny let out a faint gasp, a sign of life. Hayes felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of relief and adrenaline. Stop and see it, humans and a lion, together, defying death in a daring dance. It was the strength of compassion in action, raw and real. In moments of crisis, like Mosi and Hayes, use your strengths to support those beside you. At work or with family, a small act of support can change everything. Have you ever seen someone risk themselves to protect another without a second thought? But would the python give up so easily? And how would Shny react once finally freed? The sun was dipping in the savanna, painting the sky orange, as the air carried the faint scent of crushed herbs under the Rangers' feet. The rhythmic thuds of sticks against the giant python faded, replaced by a tense silence, broken only by Shny's faint gasp. The lioness, still trapped, began to stir, her golden fur glowing in the warm light. Mosi, the lion, stood firm, eyes locked on the snake, a guardian ready to act. Have you ever felt that relief when hope finally breaks through? That's what hung in the air, mixed with fear that the python might strike back. Suddenly, the snake's coils gave way, unraveling like loose ropes. Shny took a deep breath, her chest heaving, a spark returning to her eyes. The Rangers stepped back, sticks still in hand, as Hayes watched, his heart pounding. "She's alive," he muttered, almost to himself. Mosi moved slowly to Shny, touching her muzzle with his, a gesture so tender it felt like a hug. Seriously, who hasn't seen an animal show affection in a way that tugs at your heart? Mosi's low growl, almost a purr, echoed like a thank you. Then, he turned his head to Hayes, their eyes meeting. It was as if the lion said, "I saw what you did." Lions form emotional bonds so strong they can recognize and respond to acts of help, even from humans. Mosi's look of recognition is a rare behavior, showing a deep connection between species. The team stood silent, soaking in the moment. Hayes felt a lump in his throat, not just from the rescue, but from the trust Mosi showed. Stop and feel it, a wild lion, king of the savanna, thanking humans with a glance. It was respect between species shining through, pure and true. Shny, still weak, tried to stand, supported by Mosi, who stayed by her side like a protective shadow. The python, defeated, slithered into the brush, its scales glinting one last time before vanishing. The savanna seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, as if nature itself celebrated. When someone helps you, even with a small gesture, show gratitude, like Mosi did with his look. A thank you can strengthen bonds, whether with friends or colleagues. Have you ever felt a moment when a glance said more than words? But how would Shny recover after all this? And what would Hayes do to ensure she was okay? Twilight painted the African savanna in shades of purple and gold, the air now carrying a cool freshness, with a hint of dampness signaling nightfall. The crackle of the radio in Hayes' hands cut through the silence as he urgently called for veterinary support. Shny, the lioness, lay still, her chest rising and falling slowly, her fur still dusty from the fight with the giant python. Mosi, the lion, stood by her side, his strong body like a fortress, but his eyes soft, almost human. Have you ever seen an animal protect someone with such care it feels like family? That's what it was, there, on the dry earth, under a sky that seemed to hold its breath. Hayes crouched near Shny, checking her vital signs with experienced hands. "She's weak, but she's tough," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. The python, defeated, had slithered into the brush, its scales leaving a shimmering trail that faded into the dusk. The team kept a perimeter, sticks still in hand, but the mood had shifted, relief mixed with respect. Mosi touched Shny's shoulder with his head, a protective gesture, as if saying, "You'll be okay." Seriously, can you believe the strength of that bond? Hayes looked at the two lions and felt something bigger, as if nature was teaching a lesson about survival. Lions, like Shny and Mosi, have an impressive recovery rate after physical trauma, thanks to their resilience and the social support of their pride. Physical contact, like Mosi's touch, reduces stress and speeds recovery. The team waited for the vet, the silence broken only by the distant call of a nocturnal bird. Hayes wiped sweat from his brow and thought of Mosi's father, whom he'd saved years ago. It felt like a full circle, as if the trust between man and animal had been sealed in that savanna. Stop and reflect. When humans and animals work together, what's impossible? Shny lifted her head, weak but alive, and Mosi responded with a low purr, a sound that resonated in everyone's chest. It was the strength of compassion, shining in the gathering dark. After a tough moment, like Shny, give yourself time to recover, but don't isolate yourself. Seek support from those around you, whether family, friends, or even a pet. Touch and presence work wonders. Have you ever felt the power of a moment of care that changed everything? But how would Shny and Mosi face the night, and what would that final look from the lioness mean to Hayes? The African savanna now rested under a star-studded sky, the cool air carrying the sweet scent of night-blooming flowers opening in the dark. The soft rustle of grass swaying in the breeze was like a lullaby, as Shny, the lioness, slowly rose, her body still marked by the battle with the giant python. Mosi, the lion, walked beside her, his stride firm yet gentle, like a partner who never leaves you behind. Hayes watched from a distance, the radio now silent, his heart full of something he couldn't name. Have you ever felt a moment so big it seemed to change something inside you? That's what it was, there, in the vastness of the savanna. Shny paused for a moment, her golden fur glowing under the moonlight. She turned her head and looked at Hayes, a long, direct gaze that seemed to carry silent gratitude. Mosi looked too, his golden eyes sparkling like embers. Hayes raised his hand, an instinctive gesture, almost a farewell. "Go strong," he whispered, his voice choked. Can you believe a lion and lioness could say so much without a word? The two felines moved off, side by side, vanishing into the tall grass, the sound of their steps fading like a memory. It was as if nature had allowed Hayes to be part of something sacred. Lions like Shny and Mosi have incredible social memory, able to recognize individuals, even humans, years after an encounter. Shny's look to Hayes may have been more than gratitude, perhaps it was recognition for a lifetime. Hayes stood still, the cool breeze drying the sweat on his brow. He thought of Mosi's father, the rescue years ago, and the many times the savanna taught him about courage and empathy. Nature doesn't ask for help, he murmured, almost to himself, but sometimes, it lets you offer it. The team began packing up, but everyone felt the weight of that moment, a man-nature connection that can't be explained, only lived. Stop and imagine, a man, under the stars, realizing that saving a life is also saving a piece of yourself. When life gives you a chance to help, like Hayes, don't hesitate. A small act of kindness can create bonds that last forever, whether with a friend, a stranger, or even an animal. Have you ever lived a moment that made you feel part of something bigger? But what would Hayes carry from that day, and how would this story echo beyond the savanna? The African savanna now slept under a blanket of stars, the silence punctuated only by the soft chirping of crickets hidden in the grass. The fresh scent of the night seemed to wash away the day's weight, as Hayes and his team headed back to camp, their lanterns swaying like fireflies. The story of Shny, the lioness, and Mosi, the lion, was etched in everyone's hearts, a testament that courage, trust, and empathy can unite humans and animals in a powerful dance. Have you ever stopped to think how much one moment can change how you see the world? This rescue wasn't just about saving a lioness, it was about understanding that nature, so fierce and so fragile, sometimes invites us to be part of it. This man-nature connection Hayes experienced is a reminder, the strength of compassion isn't just for the savanna. It's for your everyday life, when you help a friend, care for a pet, or simply pause to listen. Hayes said something that lingers: nature doesn't ask for help, but sometimes, it lets you offer it. Why not carry that with you? The next time you see a chance to make a difference, no matter how small, seize it. It could be a smile, a helping hand, or even a moment of courage, like Mosi's, who roared to protect those helping him. And you, have you ever had an animal or a moment in nature that changed your life? Share it with us in the comments. Your stories inspire us as much as Shny and Mosi's. If this adventure warmed your heart, the next video suggested by YouTube will move you even more. Don't miss it. Leave a like, subscribe, and let's discover more stories that show the power of connection between humans and wildlife. Because, deep down, we're all part of the same world, aren't we?